the Do Not Disturb card with my name on it. The card wasn't on the knob where it belonged. It was under our front door, slid across the hardwood so neatly it looked like manners. Heavy stock, burgundy border, the hotel's crest pressed into the corner, and across the blank white in a hand that knew when to stop. 4 Nathan 1804. Beneath the room number, as if embarrassed by itself, the sentence that makes a body forget breakfast. If you still want the truth. G. I tune pianos for a living. I spend my days listening for the note behind the note, the shimmer where two strings forget they were meant to be twins and go off on their own adventure. You learn patience that way. You learn to breathe before deciding what's out of tune. I live with Amos, who designs exhibitions for a museum that pretends on Wednesdays not to prefer donors to visitors. We have been together 5 years. We keep the good bowls within reach and an old-fashioned pitcher in the fridge, because water is the only ritual that never lies. He had told me the night before he'd be late for a budget meeting that was also a dinner that was also an argument. He came home smelling like cedar and something hotel lobby anonymous, kissed my cheek with the practiced accuracy of a man who sometimes curates affection when he is tired, and undressed in the hall like the bedroom had done something wrong. The card slid under our door while he showered. I looked at it like people look at evidence when they want it to stop being what it is. I took the card into the kitchen and pressed the crest with my thumb until the paper went soft and admitted it had been touched. The hotel was the Armitage, a boutique place attached to the new convention center where architects delivered keynotes about the moral life of steel. The initial at the bottom of the card had a flourish that avoided being theatrical. It was the kind of G you learn from signing too many wine receipts. I could see his face without trying. The man who stood 2 people to the left of Amos at openings, who said the word intervention like he had invented it. I could have waited for night and an opportunity to ask a question that would make both of us defensive. Instead, I went to work. The Steinway at the conservatory had been waiting 2 weeks for someone to apologize for the middle octave. I set the card on the fallboard, raised the lid, and let the instrument tell me what it had been carrying. When I was done, the room felt less cruel. The card looked the same. At 3, I called the Armitage and asked the operator what time their bar stopped pretending to be a meeting. She told me 7 and then asked my name. I said it like a test I had already passed. At 5, I put on the only suit I own that can go to both a funeral and an opening. At 6, I walked into a lobby made of expensive calm and asked the elevator to let me be terrible and better at the same time. The carpet on 18 swallowed my footsteps the way old velvet swallows apologies. Room 1804 had been left on the latch like someone trusted fate or wanted a sentence to finish itself. I knocked anyway. The door opened with the grace that comes from rehearsal. Gabriel stood there in a dark shirt, unbuttoned far enough to write a promise without using the word. Taller than I remembered from committee photos, hair that had lost the battle with a late afternoon, but made it look like a strategy, mouth that knew about gentleness and didn't feel the need to convince you. He smelled like cedar, and a room that had decided to be kind for an hour. I was more angry with him for smelling good than for anything else. "You came," he said and moved aside. "I came because my name was on your idea," I said, letting him see that I was not impressed by the room or by the way he leaned on the doorframe without looking like he meant to. The curtains were half open, the city cutting itself into right angles beyond the glass. On the table were 2 glasses that had already learned condensation, a bottle of water sweating in a way that felt like a dare. A jacket I knew the shape of lay on the back of a chair that had not earned the right to hold it. The skin at the base of my neck remembered Amos unbuttoning each night, and I hated my body for its competence. "I invited you because I don't want to keep being a surprise," Gabriel said. He stayed where he was, near the door, near the hinge like someone making it easy for the room to breathe. And because if I didn't, the person who told you would be a version of him I don't want printed on anyone's mouth. How long? I asked, because cleaning the wound is better than letting it admire itself. 8 months, he said, and the number sat between us like furniture. It began with a storm and an elevator and a lobby that sells permission. It continued because we both liked the part of ourselves that was seen without reminders. I called it weather and sought shelter in the wrong noun. He didn't reach for me. He poured water and handed me a glass. His fingers touched mine and heat didn't ask for approval, and I filed the sensation like you file a tax receipt you will not be proud of months later. He watched my face and found it without trying to draw it. You could have ended it without me, I said. You could have sent him a paragraph he would pretend to admire, and I would have discovered the rest when laundry introduced me to a receipt. I tried, he said, and let a brief laugh betray the least important part of him. Twice. He's very persuasive when he tells the truth in small doses. This is not me asking you to comfort me. This is me giving you the room you were going to have to be in anyway. He stepped closer. He stopped before touching my wrist. The inch he left was hotter than any press of mouth to mouth I've ever had. I felt the yes my skin carries. I felt the no my ethics accepted like an oath. He saw both and had the decency not to gloat, which is exactly the kind of erotic that ruins sleep without ruining lives. The door opened and Amos walked in wearing the expression of a man who thinks speed counts as decency. He saw me, saw Gabriel, saw the bed he refused to let his eyes acknowledge, saw his jacket on the chair that couldn't decide if it was now furniture or witness. He closed the door carefully and found the middle of the room. "Okay," he said, and I loved him for putting the word where it belonged. "You could have kept the badge and the matchbook out of our house," I said. "You chose not to." "I chose incompetence," he said, and his mouth tried and failed to be clever. "I cheated. I told myself it was a season and seasons apologize on their own. I told myself home would survive my weather. I told myself you build futures and I only wandered. None of that is a sentence I'm allowed to say out loud anymore." "I don't want your sentences," I said, surprising myself by not raising my voice. "I want you to decide whether you are a man I can carry." He looked at Gabriel. Gabriel had moved to the edge of the window as if the city could absorb some of this without becoming more ugly. He set his hand flat against the glass and didn't fog it. He did not try to earn points. He did not perform. I hated him for not giving me something easy to despise. "You could both leave," I said. "You could send me a text later with an apology in it. Or we can be adults for once and let a room with expensive carpet see us choose something that isn't entertaining." "I'm choosing you," Amos said. "The line is cliché until it is. I'm ending this. I'll sleep on the couch. I'll tell you twice what it was, once with all the language I hid behind and once like you tune middle C, quiet and exact. I will do the work I thought I could skip because you're patient." "And you?" I asked Gabriel. "I'm leaving," he said, and the sentence served as an exit ticket instead of a flourish. He came near, lifted a hand that stopped a breath from my neck, let it hover in a way that made my whole body volunteer without consent, then lowered it like he knew better than to write on someone else's next day. "Thank you for not kissing me," he said. "I would have told myself it was a good idea." He went without closing too hard. The air corrected itself. Amos and I sat because standing had begun to feel like concealment. The glasses sweated with us. I placed the key on the table and it made a sound I hoped to forget. "I'm not leaving," I said. "We are walking home without touching. You are sleeping on the couch. We never call a guest anything. Tomorrow you end it without making him feel educational. Next week you tell me twice. I will decide what my hands can hold without lying to my wrists." He nodded. He did not cry, which I still love him for. In the elevator, he reached in reflex when a woman lost her balance. He stopped before his palm landed on my arm. I wanted the touch. I refused it. I felt like a saint and a fool and a man I could recognize in the morning. At home, he laid out a blanket with the sort of attention he should have given sentences all year. I slept like someone who had dismantled a bomb and wasn't sure whether the device had ever been live. In the morning, the kettle tried to be theatrical, and I told it no. He made tea and left the kitchen. I tuned a small upright in a sunroom for a family that fought quietly and apologized loudly. The D above middle C resisted, and then complied, as if proving people could still change under the right hand. He ended it. He stood in a lobby that sells permission and told a man who knows his own beauty that beauty isn't policy. He came home smelling like nothing and set his phone face down. He told me what he had done in the way museums tell a story when they know the new labels will be read for once. He told me again without the cleverness. The second version made me angrier and calmer at the same time. Gabriel texted one line on a Thursday afternoon. "Thank you for letting me be decent at the end." I replied, "Try it at the start." He didn't write back. Amos slept on the couch for a week. On the 8th night, I told him to come to bed. He did with a caution that made me want his mouth. He paid attention the way people pay attention when they're practicing keeping a promise that doesn't require witnesses. Desire has a talent for rearranging furniture without breaking it. We didn't pretend it was virtue. It was practice. I returned the key in an envelope with no name and no revenge. The clerk took it with the solemnity people reserve for documents and death. I did 3 pianos in 2 days and could feel something in me find middle again. When I painted open on the butcher's window, I left more air around the letters than usual. The owner stood in his apron and nodded like he could breathe easier and didn't need to know why. A week later, I saw Gabriel outside the museum. He looked smaller, or maybe my anger had been making him tall. He said hello and did not try to take my hand or my afternoon. He did not smell like cedar. We stood under the awning long enough to prove the weather wasn't part of the story. He said nothing poetic and left. Here is the truth I'm keeping. I wanted him. I wanted the smell and the near press and the lazy precision of learning someone else's mouth. Wanting does not obligate your next hour. You can let heat exist and tell it to wait. You can choose the verb that makes tomorrow possible instead of the adjective that flatters tonight. It isn't heroic. It is useful. If another card slides into my life with my name and a number that pretends to be fate, I will bring water. I will sit where the door isn't a threat. If a hand reaches toward my neck, I will decide whether the inch between skin and skin is a location or a promise. I will keep tuning middle C until it is boring and right. I will use words like yes and later and here and stay and enough. And when I rest my palm on a soundboard and feel the resonance teach the air who's in charge, I will think about the night we insisted on repair in a room that had been prepared for spectacle, and I will call that small refusal the most erotic thing we did.